Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really significant joint declaration on Gaza, and it comes from 5 key countries. You've got Italy, Australia, Germany, New Zealand, and the UK. Now, whenever you see nations like these speaking with one single voice, you know it's a major moment in global diplomacy. So, let's get right into what they had to say.
Okay, so right at the very heart of this whole statement, you get a really powerful, unified rejection. And let's be clear, this isn't some polite suggestion or a mild, we're a bit concerned kind of thing. No, this is a firm, collective pushback. It's them saying, we strongly reject this. And that one sentence, it just sets the stage for everything else that's about to come.
So why are they taking such a strong stance here? Well, the declaration doesn't just say no. It actually gets into the nitty-gritty of why these 5 nations are so worried. Let's break down their exact reasoning. You can see their reasoning really paints a picture of a crisis with a lot of moving parts. They're not just looking at this from one angle. They're pointing to 4 really specific dangers. First, they're worried it'll just make an already awful humanitarian situation even worse. Second, it puts the lives of hostages in even more danger. Third, they're concerned about a mass exodus of civilians, a huge displacement of people. And finally, they're flagging the risk of violating international humanitarian law, the very rules of war.
And their concerns don't just stop with the immediate military operation either. They actually zoom out a bit. The declaration ties this whole thing to a much bigger principle of international law. They're making it crystal clear that any move towards annexation or expanding settlements is just flat out illegal. It's a non-starter.
And this really brings us to the core reason behind this whole declaration. We're talking about the staggering human cost of the conflict. The language they use here, it's not your typical diplomatic jargon. It's stark. It's genuinely alarming.
And this quote, it's just devastating. They're saying the absolute worst-case scenario, famine, isn't something that might happen, it's happening right now. When you have 5 foreign ministers confirming that famine is a current reality, well, that adds a whole new level of urgency to everything they're calling for.
So, faced with that reality, what's their solution? It's pretty direct, and it comes in 2 parts. Step 1, an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Stop the violence. Step 2, a massive, immediate, and totally unhindered flow of humanitarian aid to deal with the catastrophe. And they make it clear you really can't have one without the other.
Now, the declaration doesn't just stick to broad calls for peace. It gets really specific. It lays out urgent demands for both sides of this conflict. So let's take a look at exactly what they're asking for.
And what's really interesting here is the balance. On one hand, they're making an urgent plea directly to the government of Israel. They're saying, you've got to fix this registration system that's getting in the way of humanitarian groups doing their job. Then, in the same breath, they turn to Hamas with an equally direct demand. Release all the hostages, immediately, no preconditions. The message couldn't be clearer. Both sides have huge responsibilities here.
All right, so beyond trying to fix the immediate crisis, these 5 nations also spell out what they see as the path to a lasting peace. This is where the document shifts gears. It moves from urgent demands to a real, long-term political vision.
And that vision? It's the 2-state solution. Now, for these 5 countries, they're not framing this as just one option on the table. They're presenting it as the only workable way forward. The goal here is a negotiated deal, one that allows both Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in peace, in security, and with dignity. It's a vision they are all standing behind. But, and this is a big but, this vision for peace comes with some very specific conditions attached. The declaration is super clear on this. For any political solution to even have a chance, they say Hamas has to be totally demilitarized and completely excluded from having any role in governing Gaza. And in its place, they see a central role for the Palestinian Authority. So they're not just hoping for peace, they're outlining a specific structure for what comes next.
And that brings us to the end of our breakdown. What we've seen is a powerful, unified statement. It's a mix of deep concern, urgent demands, and a really clear vision for the future. And it kind of leaves us with this one big question to think about, right?
When 5 major nations speak together like this, with one single forceful voice, what kind of impact does that actually have on the world stage? What happens next?